back to our earlier part of the conversation about being authentic. If I meet somebody and they like to do horseback riding and parasailing and all these things that I have never done and have no interest in whatsoever, if you don't have strong confidence, you can get pulled into that and reshape your whole identity to align with that, to be accepted. Is that where you were going with that?
Yes, and if you look at my website too, under about Bill, and I have my identity on there because I teach my people that I coach to write down their identity, so they really know if they were alone by themselves who they would really be, regardless if anybody else was there or not. And I got kind of lax. I teach people this, but I had never actually updated mine. So a few months ago, somebody asked me about, well, what is yours? So I had to update it. So mine's updated. And if you know that, it's a lot easier because now you have clarification. So when people do ask you, you're not uptight. You do have the confidence to tell them. Because a lot of times when you ask people, well, who are you? Really, who are you? And you get the Popeye response, for example, I am what I am. Or, all kinds of responses. But they sit there in silence because they've never thought about it before. So you should really know that going into a job interview or a dating situation or any kind of social situation that you're in, you should know who you are.
Yeah. Well, what is your web address so we can find this information?
Oh, it's pretty easy. It's BillGladwell.com.
Okay. We direct our listeners to that site. It's a great site. There's all sorts of information on there. I have another question about, let's be on the first date. What sort of questions are good questions to ask?
Well, I'll tell you the questions not to ask, and that goes back to the map. So, I run into guys that go out, and I just heard a story from some dating coaches, actually matchmakers, that told me that they had a client that talked about his dead dog when he went out, and on the first date. You don't want to say that kind of thing. You don't. I would recommend not drilling the other person, because I think the first date, if you can get through the first date and you're confident that they're not going to kill you at any point, that should be your goal. I mean, that they're a safe person to be around. Build a little rapport with them. Not too many questions, because if you do, you tend to push the other person away. So just make sure that this is somebody that's going to earn a second date. It doesn't matter if you're a girl or a guy. And then you can begin to talk about some of the deeper stuff. But you can talk about, like, well, I like this movie, or I watch this TV show, or this is my favorite kind of music. That's good first date conversation. But I say, if you're attracted to the person and you feel you get a good vibe from the person, give them at least a second date, because at least get them through that, and then decide if this is somebody that you want to go into a third date with, because the third date is where I leave people off. But so there's kinds of questions that you should ask on the first date are pretty just rapport building questions, like the music and like the movies, and what do you like to do for fun. But don't say, well, how much do you drink when you go out, or have you ever done drugs before? Leave that, at least for the second date, because you don't want to scare them off too quickly. But you do want to weed them out before you get too far with them.
Right. Well, I've seen there's lots of quizzes and all sorts of information in a lot of the ladies' magazines, so they almost give you this guide. And it's like, do you want to get married? How many children do you want to have? Where do you want to, and there's this litany of things. It's almost like it's it's really a questionnaire. And that's absolutely a deal killer for the first date, because you don't really have the basis. You don't have that rapport that what does it matter how many children this person wants to have if you have nothing in common? And so finding out those music and interest and other things. So, okay. Then I have a question here for a comment from Real Coaching Radio TV. Is it possible to begin to build trust and safety from the beginning and make it a dance in the conversation?
Make it a dance in the conversation? Is that what it was?
Yeah. You take a step, I take a step. That's the metaphor.
Yes. I think it is a possibility to do that. Here, and I don't. This was a quote that I read someplace, and I can't remember where I read it now. But I have all these quotes in my head that they're there. They're not mine. Some of them are not mine. This is not mine, but it is. What was the quote? It is, It's better to trust is better than love, because you can always fall in love with somebody that you trust, but you don't always trust the people that you love. So I think on the first date, yeah, you need to build up that trust, and the comfort. There was trust, and what else? What was the other thing that they ask about?
Safety.
Safety. Yeah, if you don't feel safe. And I'm assuming on the first date that you're not having them pick you up anyways, and that you're meeting someplace. And I always recommend for a first date, do something fun or go out for coffee. That way you're there and you meet. But yeah, I think that's the goal of the first date, is to do that. And as it being a dance, it shouldn't be a game. It shouldn't be, well, you do this and I'll do that. But it should be a seamless interaction between the two of you, where you both do